So you got in touch and asked me about goal setting, which is a subject. It sounds always a bit sad when I say it's a subject close to my heart. It's like
Yeah.
an indication of how little life I do have. But and you were talking about maybe for some of your clients, and
Yeah.
especially in this time of COVID,
Yeah.
pandemic, etc., lockdown.
Yeah.
So, let's say, what's your experience so far of goal setting, or what are your have you used any models previously?
I have, but a long time ago, probably back to uni days. So nothing specific when it comes to actually, since I've been coaching, really, I just kind of have always followed the level 3 guidelines and then kind of run with that, really, but
Okay.
no specific goal
Yeah.
setting. And I think that, again, kind of goes back to where I'm at the moment and the position that I'm in, and with all of the coaches, there's a lot going on and there's no real structure. And I feel as though I really need that structure to be able to look forward. And yeah, so I think I came to that and thought goal setting would be a really good place to start, really.
Okay. So have kind of one half of your mind on the players that you maybe would do this type of work with, but also think about how you could introduce it to everyone, because I think there's a common thing, a perception in my mind in tennis, that people think goal setting is only for the best players. But I think this principle that I'm going to show you could be done by anyone, and almost should be done by anyone if they want to get better. That's the key thing. I have deliberately called this a think tank because this, for me, is very much a work in progress. And I want it to be a two-way kind of conversation when you feel comfortable to jump in. But it's more the essence that I want to show you today and get your feedback from, if that's okay. So this would be a standard model that people would use for goal setting. So the SMART principle you'll have remembered from your level 3 days. So specific, measured, agreed, realistic, and timed. Some people change this to attainable. So there's two different SMART models. For me, I don't think that's as relevant, because if it's specific and it's measured and it's realistic, then it should be attainable. So I think the agreed is much more, makes more sense for me. And this would be a very typical process, performance and outcome model that most people would buy into in terms of sports coaches goal setting. What I've done is I've kind of given a typical example. So let's say the outcome goal was to reach top 10 in GB. That the performance goal, I've just taken serve, for example. So there might be 3 performance goals: increase the first serve percentage, increase percentage of points won on first serve, and increase the percentage of points in attack after first serve. It's kind of like a 3-layered phasing type thought there. You're going from general to specific. Now, for me, these are performance goals, typically are ones that you would use on the match court. So that they would be your indicators of performance that you would use on the match court. The other way of thinking is you can have performance drills or performance tests, if you like. So, for example, let's say you decided that you wanted to have this as one of your performance goals. You could do a scatter diagram. Have you heard of that on the...
I have, a long time ago.
So it would be something like, you choose a target zone, you have 10 serves, you maybe stand down the other end of the court with 10 tennis balls. They serve wide, for example, and you put a tennis ball where their ball lands. So you're not just trying to increase the percentage, but you're trying to group them as close together as possible. So that could be an example of something you could do on the training court to monitor the performance of this goal. So the process, I've written down a couple of examples here. So we've got, these are all hypothetical, of course, but develop leg drive on the serve. So that could be not using the legs enough. Improve throwing mechanics, so that the playing arm is not effective or efficient, and create pre-point routines, could be more of a mental aspect, and then develop serve and ball 3 patterns is more of a tactical. So we've got physical, technical, mental and tactical. So that's just one of each kind of goal. So that, you know, I've used this quite a lot with coaches who work with players that compete, and as a basic model, it's pretty simple, and it's effective if it's followed through.
And how long would you set this goal for example?
Something like, let's say, for example, this might be a seasonal goal, like 2020. The performance one would be more like a typically work maybe even like a 2 to 3 month maximum. Yeah. And the processes you might decide to do within maybe 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month, you know, if you're doing a cycle. So, but again, this is the kind of challenges with the model, is that this is going to have to constantly evolve to make that happen. It's not you're going to work on leg drive for a month, you know what I mean? It could be literally 2 or 3 sessions. So if I go into this, the challenges for the model, the extrinsic goal tends to lead to extrinsic motivation. So what I mean by that is that if someone is outcome orientated versus task orientated, they will hook onto the outcome goal so much that it actually inhibits their performance. Yeah. Because they want to win too much, essentially. They get desperate rather than determined. The outcome feels like an end point, which I think is a tragedy in tennis. I was just speaking yesterday on a podcast about, for me, this is a really sad thing that I'm hearing more and more often, is sports people achieving one of their biggest life goals, and actually it feels like a letdown or maybe at best a relief, you know, but they're actually going, is that it? That's what I've worked all my life for, you know, and I feel that's a terrible shame. So I don't think of outcome goals as endpoints. For me, they would be indicators or checkpoints or key markers and so on. And the worst thing is when someone attaches their outcome to their self-worth. So I'm kind of big into well-being. I'm judging by the stuff that you have, that I see you do on your social media channels, like the fitness and so on. I'm you know, you tell me, is there a mental benefit to you doing those workouts as well as physical?
Yeah, I think because a bit of my background, so I played tennis from about 8 and then played competitively, from 5, then played competitively from 8 to 21. And I similarly, when I finished playing and I kind of knew that was going to be the end of it, it was very abrupt for me. I had a lot going on at home. I decided to go to uni, and that was great. That kind of set me on my path. But when I decided to give up tennis, I kind of didn't know where to go. And I ended up taking 10 years off to try out a few different things, and I came across certain issues within work that just made me feel like I was a failure, or I lost all my confidence because I was so used to being in that sports orientated background, or having that background that if I keep going it will just happen. I know that it will happen, and it just wasn't happening for me. So it ended up really affecting my mental state of anxiety, a lot that I kind of dealt with over the last few years. And so for me, I fell back into tennis in a great way, which I'm really positive and happy about, and kickstarted my coaching career. But before that happened, I wanted to get back into fitness, and it all just kind of fell back into place. But that really felt to me like it really helped my mental side. And I feel like if I make myself accountable to work out each day, and at the start of lockdown I was filming, I'd still pretty much film most days when I work out, just so that I am accountable, so I have to do it. I know it motivates my friends and my clients, and even if it motivates, like I think you've said similarly, even if it motivates that one person, I feel good about it, they feel good. And
well, let's hook back a little bit more to that self-worth thing, because you know, you alluded to it, that if someone is attaching any kind of identity or self-worth to the outcome of any activity, then sport and tennis is brutal. It's so up and down that your kind of confidence, your self-esteem is going to go up and down like a roller coaster as well. So I in my personal opinion, and this is not a common performance opinion, I think I get a lot of challenges from this from some of my peers. I definitely do not focus on the outcome. but I think it could be used as some sort of guideline indicator type way. The challenge with the performance goals, if you remember back to the percentages, all those kind of charting things, is that it needs someone to chart it. So you actually, in a way, you create a reliance or a dependency on the coach or the parent or anyone that's going to actually help. So it takes away some sort of autonomy for the actual person involved. And this, for me, is a big one that I experience a lot with the work that I do, is that the reality is those 4 examples I gave you in the previous slide of process are just a drop in the ocean. So even if we say develop leg drive, that could involve a physical program, that could involve yoga, that could involve various different exercises to develop the leg strength, from a standing broad jump to hopping, to all this hurdling, all these different things. There's a total minefield, even just in the physical. The technical work could be to the nth degree. The mental stuff can have arms and legs, and the tactical stuff can be used in so many different ways. So my experience is that people get overwhelmed with this, and it's almost used as an excuse to bail, which I'll speak about a little bit later on. The other thing that happens is people forget the plan. So they set the goals, and then they don't refer back to them. Or they don't create a plan based on the goals. They kind of go, there's the box ticking done for the goal sheet. So if someone, let's say like me, comes into a program and says, right, can you show me your goal setting? They'll show me the sheet, and I say, right, now show me it in action. And they're like, they haven't actually thought about it that way. And therefore they don't evaluate their goals. Have you had any experiences in that?
I think we've had a couple of meetings with our national GLL coach that has kind of come in and said we need to start trying to follow more of a structure, and they were talking about doing rally challenges, so and just some more specific goals, and then trying to roll it out throughout the program. And it was difficult because of the size of team that we have. You've got some people that are on board and some people that just aren't at all, so that's another struggle in itself. But we would start it and then come across certain problems, like we didn't have enough time to do it, or some kids were left out of then tracking how many rallies they were doing in a certain amount of time, or some kids just didn't like that kind of competitive side of things, so they didn't want to do it at all. So it was working out the ins and outs. It was a good idea, but implementing it was a different thing. And then next thing you know, we were meant to discuss it again, and it just never got discussed.
It's so common, and what you've just described is exactly why I started to think about this extra layer that we'll talk about now, because the reality is to set goals and live the goals, you need to have a certain mindset, in my opinion, and you need to have certain disciplines and motivation to do it. So that's perfect as an example. So this is just my thinking. So perhaps we need to change the way that we think. And what could happen if we added like formation of healthy habits to goal setting?